Welcome to Dallas, the home of the killers. Welcome to Dallas, sharks and gorillas. The girls, they going harder than
Hola, hola, hola. ¿Cómo estás? It's Poofy Man back again with another episode of the Poofy Man podcast. Oh boy, we got one for you, I think. And why I say I think is because today I'm going to try a little experiment. So, if you watched or saw the podcast, not last, but the one before, it was about the Fauci situation and his kind of evil doings. And at the end of it, I, said if there ever were evil in this world, it comes in the form of Dr. Fauci, of course. I'm clearly not for this man. I find him to be a despicable human being. However, just as kind of a mental experiment, I want to see if there's a way that for the next 9 minutes, I can find a way to kind of find a defense for the guy. I want to see if I can do this, okay? I don't have any notes or anything. I just want to see if I'm just being partial, essentially because of where I sit under the circumstance of COVID and how he did things as a small business owner. Like, a lot of things in my life changed, and so I'm particularly bitter about it. However, it's important to set your own emotions aside when assessing these things if you really are actually trying to find the truth. So, essentially, when we talk about this, and I'm going to start here, because we found this diary, right, that was written, presumably, as any diary is, under, the darkness of night, lit by candle, and it was supposed to be this thing that, it's his personal feelings about things, okay, that was accidentally shared because he, unfortunately, probably mixed up in the fog of war, probably just was a little careless and saved it on a network server that was eventually came under the investigation's umbrella as part of evidence that could be, investigated or at least submitted for investigation. So that was a mistake on his part. However, is it a mistake for someone to express themselves in a diary now? So he did find some new fame in this whole thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't care about COVID per se. Both of those things can happen at the same time. Someone could be, for the first time in their life, acknowledged for all the hard work they're doing at 80 years old, after spending 50 years saving people's lives, perhaps, and they're a little giddy about it. For any individual to pretend like that kind of attention wouldn't be exciting is kind of silly, is it not? I mean, I know I would. All of a sudden, one day, after fucking toiling in a total isolation, essentially, doing the hard work that provides this blanket of security for hundreds of millions of people, finally getting, being acknowledged for that type of work, I think it's okay. And if I want to privately go home and express that, I mean, where else do you put it? It's not like he was up in front of a camera doing it because he knew that was wrong. And I think that that's sort of it's easy to see how someone could do that. Especially under the presupposition that no one was ever going to read it. Okay? That it's for you, just like any other little girl's diary about all the boys she thinks are cute and how she's friends with Katie even though Katie's kind of a bitch and all that other stuff. She's not going to be rude and go call Katie a bitch to her face. That's what a diary's for. So, I don't know if we can use that stuff and just totally partially see it as being this embarrassing exposure of who he really is. Albeit the case that it's not just that. So there's also the case that we found in his diary, which really put him in a precarious position where he was saying things that seemed to contradict the public knowledge that he had been propagating, right? Like masks mattering, masks being able to reduce your risk of contracting COVID, and distance, and, you know, all those things that ended up being kind of formally untrue. Well, he also came out and said that publicly. He also came out and said, like, at some point that, you know, they really weren't going to prevent a whole lot, right? You know, when it came to masks. This was later on. I remember this being, you know, kind of maybe 2022 or 23 when he kind of came out and he admitted that in a lot of ways, some of the practices that he had encouraged were just the best practices that he could come up with in the interim period before finding a vaccine. It's like, okay, I mean, it's not going to hurt you. It didn't hurt anybody to stay a little further away from people. It definitely wasn't a bad idea. It wasn't a bad idea to put a mask on. I mean, it's just something that keeps your fucking mouth and nose, like, protected from whatever's outside. You know, I mean, in lieu of a better solution, like, that's what they did in 1920s, and that's what we did now. I mean, nothing's really changed. We didn't hunt anyone down in the 1920s for suggesting we wear masks and doing social distancing. So why Fauci? Okay. What about, like, the vaccine stuff? So this one's a little tougher to kind of, you know, paint him as a decent human, I think. Mostly because of just the almost military subjugation that they put people through, right? And, you know, telling people to follow the science when science is literally defined by its inquiry. It's like what it is. But, you know, at the time, it's perhaps it's the case that it still was the best of two bad options, right? And, like, his best option in his mind to protect people, his duty was simply to optimize your chance of survival. It wasn't to tell you the truth. It wasn't to do any of these things. It wasn't to give you every single insider piece of information. It never is. We can't handle all that stuff. Look what happened look what happened. People went fucking nuts. But to say that it can all be tied back to one person, perhaps, I don't know if he's necessarily the only culprit involved. And I'm not sure he's a culprit in the sense that he deliberately tried to kill people as much as it was an informed decision he made that on a topic or on a matter at hand that was going to kill people regardless, right? People were going to die regardless. All he wanted to do was use the information that he had and then mitigate those deaths as much as possible. Perhaps the information he had was, even if it was the discrepancy between the two pieces of information or maybe the two choices when juxtaposed, the margins were small, but getting the vaccine may have been a better choice. I don't know. There's definitely, I mean, I don't know what the actual numbers are, but it's possible that there were more people, you know, more people would have died had the vaccine not come out than if it had. We'll never know. I mean, we can't look backwards and use that as some, like, form of indictment on somebody. Can't look back on something that didn't happen and then juxtapose it with something that did. So, maybe. I mean, you know, it's hard when you look at him because you go, he looks like my grandpa or something. I mean, I don't know. What would be his motive for that? And of course, we always come back to, again, this diary, which is the problem here. You know, and the last thing I want to say about it, I mean, because of just the way that it kind of gives his inside his mind privately, this is how he really feels. And so, you know, if anyone were to defend him, they're going to have to explain to people that, like, this is how everybody would feel. I don't know if everybody would feel that way, but perhaps. The second thing that people have to remember, this is also a funny one too, is like, you know, we always forget that, so Republicans can't, you know, defend Trump and hate Dr. Fauci. Donald Trump put Dr. Fauci in play. Joe Biden protected him. It's not a partial issue. It's not partisan. It's bipartisan. So whatever people feel about this person is how they really feel. It's not actually, it's unusually, uniquely not tied to their political persuasion, which is interesting. So anyways, this is Poofy Man. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. I just wanted to come back with some information there and see what y'all thought. I've been thinking about it a little bit. So till next time, this is Poofy Man. I'm out of here.
Welcome to Dallas, the home of the killers. Welcome to Dallas, sharks and gorillas. The girls, they going harder than